Welcome to this video, or podcast should I say, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to spend it with me. I really appreciate it, and thank you to everyone from YouTube or on the YouTubes. Just fix that microphone. Everyone on YouTube who has supported the channel so far and contributed with comments and questions, and it's been great to see them coming through over the last few weeks, especially the subscriber count, which has kind of wowed me a little bit. But to introduce this, for those who don't know who I am, I'm Brendan Turner and I'm a movement coach. I've lost 10 stone in weight, which is about 140 pounds for those over in America. I know there's a few Americans and Canadians that watch this, but I've changed my life and I coach executives, business owners and CEOs who are in pain, who want to become pain-free. It's been a wild journey to reinvent my life, and in the process I've learned a lot of things, I've made a lot of mistakes, I've injured myself, I've been in pain for 2 years, and it's been a wild ride. All I can say, it's been a wild ride. Since the start of 2022, I've made several emails, or sent several emails out with 2 resources per week that are set to help people with 5 things that all have an impact on our mental and physical health. So when it comes to being pain-free, it's important to pay attention to all of these areas of your life. The first one is body fat percentage. The higher the body fat percentage, the more your immune system will be compromised. The second one is diet. So the better balanced and more well-rounded your diet, the more your cells will be healthy. The third is sleep, and this is hugely important because the less quality or good quality sleep you have, the more the body's out of balance. Sunlight, vitamin D, something that's really missing in society today, especially with kids being on devices. You're probably watching this indoors, ironically, but get out there into the sun for some vitamin D. Biomechanics, how you stand, walk, run, and how your muscles respond to your positions in space will have a great impact on how much pain your body is in. If you're not subscribed to my newsletters, then please hit the link below. It'll take you to the description and you can join my growing community where you'll get these blasted out to you once a week, or just simply consider subscribing to the channel, hitting the notification bell for more content like this. So let's face facts. Time is the most valuable thing that we have, and we're living in a world where we're bombarded with emails, text messages, DMs, calls, notifications, and attention-grabbing headlines. On top of that, we also need to make time for our friends and family and everything else that we do. So I appreciate that not everyone is an idealistic movement and health coach who takes pleasure in combining all these resources together and figuring out life, right? This is sort of essentially why I'm making these videos, because if I sent you 2 resources per week, that's 8 resources to run through every 5 weeks. You know, you've got a ton of information. Like, when are you going to find the time to do that amongst everything else? So the podcast, or this video series, has been voted for by people in my newsletter, and it's important that, like, the reason they want this is because they know that it's like overwhelming to look at all this stuff and go, how am I going to make head or tail of it? And that's where I come in today. So to kick things off, I'm going to run you through 8 resources today that you need to check out to help you make better decisions for your health, for your movement, for your lifestyle, and to help you live as a thriving human being. The first resource that I wanted to talk about today was the Functional Patterns article. I've got it on my iPad here. I'm going to give you some cliff notes so to see if you want to go ahead and read it. Essentially, The Grains, The Uncomfortable Truth is the name of the resource. This is about how grains affect your health performance. It's really interesting to understand it, most notably when you think about this in conjunction with the food chart that's in my recipe book and in my 12-step program, which you can download by joining my newsletter. So check those out. But essentially, what this is talking about here is, if you've got someone who's in a lot of pain, chronic pain, for instance, 9 times out of 10 they'll have inflammation in their bodies. And the body isn't very good at dealing with grains. That's just the truth of it. It's getting worse and worse as the years progress because of the number of pesticides and herbicides that are sprayed on food. And that article there kind of gives you a really good summary of what grains you should remove from your diet, and how you can test it. So it's quite a good resource there for you to tap into. If you find that, this was in the article actually, if you find that trying to pull your belly button in, so like I'm sitting on a chair right now, but if I pull my belly button in and I try and expose my rib cage, like vacuum seal my stomach. When you do that, like your transverse abdominis muscle is pulling in towards your spine. So it's pulling in on your organs essentially. Now, if you've got a lot of inflammation in the gut from eating a lot of grains, the chances of you being able to do that effectively are minimal. I can see this with clients that I work with to try and get them to retract after maybe a heavy weekend of boozing or eating bad food. It's like nothing happens. But you take the grains out and all of a sudden they start getting better muscular contractions and better muscular engagement. And that's what this article's all about. It's about telling you, like, hey, these foods are not really going to affect you very well. Lots of bloating, lots of stomach cramps, lots of issues, even if you don't think you've got them, which is where I was. So that was a really good, interesting resource. That was in the first week. The second resource that we're going to talk about is age and how to reverse it. So this is by a wonderful man called David Sinclair. David has been studying aging, and his process of studying it has been kind of a bit of a wild ride. He's actually got a podcast series that he's just launched, dealing with all the major areas of kind of what affects aging, how you can kind of overcome certain elements of aging. It's not to say that you found the fountain of youth by watching this resource by any means. You're not going to get younger, but what he's saying essentially in all these podcasts is like, these things, if you align them correctly, you will slow down the age at which your skin changes. You'll slow down the age at which your cells degenerate. And if you can comfortably and sensibly do that over time, then you're going to live a longer life and a healthier life to that. So really interesting podcast. It is very detailed. So if you're not into science and talking about labs and testing and things like that, it might not be for you. But understand that he has got a book which is called Lifespan, where he probably gets a bit geeky as well. But there is a ton of information in that podcast. Like, even if you just put it on and went and did some task around the house and you had it playing in the background, some of that information is going to stick with you. The most important things I took from the first episode of that was actually about meals and reducing portion sizes, but also what I've been doing for ages is fasting. So really good article there, interesting resource for you there. Let's move on to the week 2 resources. So red light therapy was the first one that I sent out on that topic. And this is to deal with your vitamin D uptake. So the chap who I referenced is a chap called Nick Kutsir. Now, Nick, I've come across his videos a few times, and if you're watching this, Nick, then thank you for sharing it. It's really interesting. He's got a product that he sells, which is a red light therapy device. It's not a kinky thing that most people think. I've been talking about this with a few clients and they're like, oh, red light therapy, hey, whoa, Amsterdam, here we come. It's not like that. What this is a tool for you to teach your body to open up its responsiveness to absorbing vitamin D. So you're not going to have a red light therapy device. There's a whole bunch of other benefits and features that it covers. But in this particular video, he talks about how you can use a red light therapy device in your daily routine to help your cells learn that absorbing vitamin D is a good thing. And what the red light therapy does is it just helps gradually open you up to it. Equally, if you live in a country that's quite dim, like the UK, for instance, it's pretty grey and murky here for like most of the winter period. So if you're giving your body that red light therapy, even with the minimal sunlight that you're getting exposed to, your body's going to be more responsive to absorbing it. And let's face facts, right? If you put a cat in a cold house throughout the day, that cat is going to find every opportunity to lie in the sun that it possibly can. And if you don't believe me, go and look at cat videos on YouTube, but don't get too distracted and don't leave just yet, because I've still got more resources to go through with you. So there's that one. That one's really good. Sleep and why it's important was the fourth resource I sent out in 2022, Matthew Walker and the podcast with Joe Rogan. This blew my mind. Honestly, I was like, this was quite a few years ago, and I listened to this thing and I was like, what? What the hell? How come nobody told me about sleep being important? I've been saying this since I was a teenager. I just want to sleep. And the truth of the matter is, we have got imbalances in our sleep patterns due to a number of things. You can talk about electromagnetic forces. You can talk, I mean, this goes into real, it's like a 3-hour podcast here. So if you've got the time to it, listen to it. But things that will affect your sleep patterns: caffeine. How much caffeine are you having? What time of the day do you stop having caffeine? I believe his quote in this was, if you have a half-life of coffee, let's say you have a coffee at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you've still got half that caffeine running through your veins at like midnight or something like that. It was insane. So it really made me more conscious of how much caffeine I was taking in. It really made me more conscious of regulating my sleep patterns so that I had between 7 and 8 hours, and really dialing in on being strict with my bedtime protocol. So like not having devices stuck to your face the whole night, and not the first thing that you do when you wake up, will really help to keep that sleep pattern more manageable. There's a whole bunch of things in that podcast which I really think you should dive into if you're interested in improving your sleep, or if you wake up feeling exhausted every single day and you don't have the energy to get through the day. I've been there. It's not fun. I can tell you that right now. On from there, we had another resource, which was a lady called Anna Marsh. Now, Anna has run a coaching business for many years. She's gone through various transitions from being a personal trainer and CrossFit athlete to being a women's health coach, essentially now, who deals especially with women who are dealing with hormonal issues or chronic fatigue. She lives in the UK, and she's done a really good job of sharing some information in a 5-part series, as far as I know, about hormones and female hormones. Now, if you might be thinking, Brendan, I'm not a girl, I'm a dude. Well, if you've got a significant other in your life, it's important that you take note of these things and spend some time on it, because the more you actually understand what women are going through, the better it's going to be for you. Like if you're close to someone and they're your partner, you should be doing things to make them feel like you actually care. And part of that would be understanding like, hey, you need to get your hormones checked, or this, that, and the other. Obviously, don't say that. You don't want to be that guy. Like, hey, you need to go and get your hormones checked, young lady. But anyway, you get what I'm trying to say, right? Anna has worked with my fiancé Kate a couple of times to help her with her health, dealing with the hormonal changes that she's going through in her early to late 40s. That is the stage of growth that, or the stage of time that's quite important in a lot of people's lives. Like men, 35 onwards, you need to start dialing in on your health. You need to start dialing in on your movement. You need to start dialing in on your habits. Otherwise, you're going to end up with back problems, neck problems, hormonal problems down the line. And women, it's exactly kind of the same crux of time. That period of change in people's lives, these can be managed effectively given the right resources, and there's a lot of science going into that right now. So shout out to Anna, well done. That's a really good resource for you. The next one was a blog article I put on from Functional Patterns again. Now, if you didn't know, I'm going to be a Functional Patterns Human Foundations practitioner, fingers crossed, if all goes well. This one about anxiety and posture, and how the biomechanics affects anxiety and posture. That's a really good article for you to check out. Why is it important? Okay, like why is it important to stand properly? Well, your body is such a connected piece of engineering. It's a phenomenal piece of engineering, and if your imbalances are in your body, or if you've got several imbalances, you're going to be coming unstuck at some stage in your life. Okay, it's important that not everyone's born with perfect symmetrical abs and bodies, and the ones that are the outliers, and the ones that are the athletes, and the ones that are the people that we put on covers of magazines. Those are the people. I'm not that person. I'm never going to be that person, but I'm going to do my damnedest to create that change in my body that I need. And this article deals with why are we seeing anxiety spikes? Why are we seeing depression spikes? What is it about anxiety and the human posture and body that we can fundamentally change. Now, I can tell you this right now, not only when you fix someone's posture and coordination and their biomechanics, do they feel more confident and therefore pull themselves out of maybe feeling sorry for themselves, not only do they start to change their lives and become more active and less in less pain, there's this transformation, this fire that gets lit in someone when you align all the cellular parts of the body and the structure of the body. It's crazy to see it, and when you see it in people, it's like they're a different person. So definitely look at that article. It's really, really good one. We're moving on to the final week, okay, before we load it up with a video here and a little podcast for you. Communication, right? Communication is one of the most important things that humans can do and learn about today, more than any other time. Like, I am communicating to you right now as you watch this or listen to this. You are probably communicating to people in your life every single day, and a large part of people's problems come from how they communicate with each other. They don't, like, you think about it. Just think about it. If you were able to communicate better with someone who had different views to you, how do you think your life would pan out in terms of friction? We need a certain amount of friction. We need a certain amount of arguing. We need a certain amount of but we also need a bit more balance in the world. We need to be less extreme with our approach to everything. We need to be a little less extreme with how we communicate with each other. And the book that I've recommended for people to check out is Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Now, I started reading this book because I wanted to be able to communicate with my clients better. I am an introvert, really. I mean, I like to be alone. I like my own company. I've never been one to stand up and speak in front of people, even though I do it. I put my hand on my heart and say, the reason I did boot camp classes for like 40 or 50 people was to build my confidence up, to start helping more people, right? I've spoken on stage. I've given talks to various networking groups. Putting myself in those positions created a great sense of stress that I needed to overcome these. Like coming on YouTube, if I show you the first YouTube video I ever made, oh my God, it was crazy. And that was about the same time I started reading this book. But learning about communication and the value of communication in today's society, that is massive. So there's like different principles that Dale Carnegie puts into this book. And you don't even really need to read it as a novel. It's not like a start to finish kind of thing. You can dip in at different principles if you're faced with a different challenge. So for example, I was preparing for a job interview to become a personal trainer after becoming a fitness coach. So you go like fitness coach, personal trainer. And in that transition, I had to prove my worth, right? And you know what? I used all the principles that Dale put down in the first part of his book along communication and making yourself more likable. And it sounds kind of weird, right? You're not manipulating people, but you're opening up a line of communication that says like, hey, I'm an open person. I'm being very upfront with you. I'm being honest. I'm being genuine. And I'm genuinely interested in you. I'm genuinely interested in this conversation. I'm with you all the way. And then that leads on to so much in the future. And I got my job off the back of it. Like I had the principles written down before the interview. I was like, I'm not going to even bother about qualifications. Like, what have I done in the past? Where do I want to be in 5 years? All that crap. I was just like, look, I'm just going to stick to these principles and see if it works. And guess what? I got the job and it was great. And now it made me, like, without that, I wouldn't have been able to go through what I went through to get here. Do you see where I'm going with this? So you might read a book and go, that was all right. But then you learn little nuggets along the way. We'll talk about that in another podcast sometime. Lastly, the last resource is, this one's a good one, okay? Especially given the context of the world at the moment. And if you follow this dude on Instagram, it's insane. Dr. Jack Kruse and his book, The Epi-Paleo RX. This book, I'm just going to put this away because this is finished now in terms of the resources. This book, honestly, like, if I'd known all of this stuff the last time, or when I started losing weight, when I started to change my life, it would have just changed everything. Okay, he goes through a process of being able to reverse disease, a process of how you can test yourself, what things you need to look out for. This book is like a grail of information, and particularly if you live in a country where you're able to pick up prescription pills very easily. He's a doctor, he's got experience with this. Is he one-sided or a little bit biased? Yes. He's very much against big pharma. He's very much against the whole process of, let's have a pill for every ill. He's very much about like, what can we do naturally to help ourselves, but using the medical system in the right ways to help us achieve that. Because as we've discussed already, hormones play a part. Your posture, your sleep, your diet, these are all things that make a big difference. And everything I've just talked about in this episode of this podcast is covered in that book. Like it's the perfect one to end this podcast, this first podcast on. If you get a chance to read it, it's great. Essentially, what he's saying in this is independently test your blood and check for your imbalances. That's the first step. All right. Check certain elements of your blood. So, for example, for me, I went on to Thriver. Let me get my phone. My tests last year. I tested diabetes, testosterone, iron profile, thyroid profile, CRP, vitamin B9 and 12, B12 total, cholesterol, liver function, and vitamin D. I tested all of those, and they all came back green. So I was good, basically. It told me there was no imbalances. It's all done through a company. You take the blood yourself, or you can get a nurse to come and do it. I'm not promoting Thriver here, but what I'm trying to say is, if you go to a doctor and you say, well, I need my blood checked, well, what's wrong with you? Well, nothing's wrong with me. I just want to see where I'm at. I don't know what the process is like. I don't know how much you can see. I don't know how much they look at. I don't know what they do. You could probably go and ask for this at your local GP. However, having that information independently done with a different kind of doctor and having a second opinion is something that's like hugely valuable. You've never had an opportunity now with more technology and more availability of resource than ever before. And for you to just sit back and wait until there's a problem and then go to the doctor to get it sorted, that's kind of like closing the door after the horse has bolted, in my view. And I've been there, don't get me wrong, like I've been there. I've been down that road, and it was a dark, dark road, and it took a lot of touch points to get me out of it. I had shingles, I had appendicitis, I had lung infections, chest infections, all that good stuff. And I ended up in a hospital many times with doctors kind of going, right, well, let's just kind of fix you up and send you on your way. But at no point did I stop to think, well, how can I possibly make my life better by choosing to do an independent test and actually see what's going on? Holy crap, I can see on a piece of paper or on an app that my cholesterol's up. I can see that my iron's down. I can see that this is wrong. And then that can go, you can take that information and go like, who do I know that can help me improve my cholesterol? Who do I know that can help me improve my testosterone levels? All that kind of stuff, that's really important. And it's a fundamental thing that, like, back in the day, we wouldn't have known how to do it. So anyway, I don't need to ramble because this has been quite a good length video. What I want to talk about with these podcasts is just bringing people this information, give you some ideas on what it's all about, and become more conscious and aware of how your body is, what your body does, how your body responds to everyday life. Becoming more aware of yourself is step one. Doing something about the issues and the things that you're struggling with, that's step two, and that's where professionals like myself come in and we can help along the way. Thank you very much for watching this video or tuning into this podcast, as it were. There's more to come, so see you in a few weeks. Jump on the mailing list if you haven't already, hit subscribe and all that good stuff. Have a great day, night, week, wherever you are. Stay strong and keep moving.